Why do you actually struggle with boundaries? If you have a hard time setting boundaries, it might not be because of the reason you think it is. That may not be the issue for you. Instead, I want you to acknowledge that you know exactly when you feel uncomfortable. You know exactly when somebody keeps doing something that bothers you and you still don't say anything. If this is you, stay until the end of the video because I'm going to tell you some things that are going to damage the relationship, are going to damage yourself and your self-worth. Why don't you actually say anything about this issue? Very often underneath these emotions, there is a fear. You have this thought or this mentality that you might not be aware of, that if you say no, they're going to think that you are difficult. If I tell him this bothers me, the connection might be threatened. If I tell him this bothers me, maybe he will leave me, right? And all of these fears kind of go hand in hand with abandonment. So the first thing that I want you to be aware of is that a boundary does not mean controlling somebody. It means agency, being aware of what actually is bothering you and taking aligned action to not be resentful towards yourself and other people. This is one of the misconceptions that I see online. Boundaries does not mean that you're controlling someone. We know that another adult, it's unpredictable. So if you tell someone you're not allowed to do that, you cannot be in control with it for the other person because the other person is unpredictable. A boundary is, if this happens, I am going to do this. If a boundary gets crossed, I will need to reassess on what that means for me. Example would be, you cannot scream at me. A boundary would be, if you start screaming at me, I'm going to end the conversation and reassess later time when you're calm. I do not have a conversation with somebody that's insulting me or raising their voice. You can completely see the difference. So one is trying to manage the other person. The boundary tries to manage your participation in the situation. This is the part where it gets deeper. Imagine you tell someone no, they get disappointed. What happens inside of you? Instead of you thinking, oh, this might threaten the disconnection, this might threaten the relationship, start noticing what type of feelings are coming up. For example, do you immediately start explaining? Do you feel guilty? Do you change your mind? Do you think, oh my God, are they upset with me? Do you start overthinking your actions? Let me tell you, this used to be me. This used to be me. You know, I've had the fear of abandonment, and I used to question and overthink my actions. Like, oh my God, am I threatening this connection? And it really goes back to the fear of abandonment. You thinking that just because you say no or you disagree with a certain person, like you're not allowed to have a different opinion. You're not allowed to say no because it may threaten the connection. This goes back to the way that you're raised and how your parents might have taken away affection, stopped talking to you because you did something wrong. Like instead of you allowing that space to remain, you were afraid because you didn't want to miss that love. Going back to the subject and putting aside the childhood wounds that we all have, I want you to start noticing what type of narrative is going in your brain. Or are you actually overthinking your actions because you're afraid of what the other person might say? Let me tell you, once I started practicing these boundaries, but like within myself, I didn't have to over explain why I took certain actions. Let's give an example so we can better understand each other. I mentioned this in other videos that I do not like rushing. Why? Because for a long part in my 20s, I used to rush everywhere. So whenever someone showed up unannounced, whenever someone called me up last minute, I didn't think it was fun. Or maybe when I was younger, I thought that was fun. And so what type of boundary did I have for myself? Oh, I just simply didn't answer for last minute texts. Like I'm just not, what type of boundary am I applying in this situation? Oh, I'm not available for last minute things. Why? Because I don't want to be rushed. Even though I have nothing planned, like I don't want to rush to get ready and then rush to think about what I'm going to wear. Rush. I love getting ready. So that's something you have to ask yourself. What are you no longer available for? Because this varies. Why do I want you to be aware of the narrative that you have or every time you put up a boundary, because healthy boundaries require you to understand something very important. Someone being disappointed in you doesn't automatically mean that you did something wrong. Let that sink in. Someone being disappointed in you doesn't automatically mean that you did something wrong. So remember that in the beginning, or a few seconds ago, I said you really have to put into consideration that way that you were brought up with, the way that you were educated with. Maybe you did something wrong as a child, and then your parents stopped talking to you. You really felt as a child that love was being taken away from you. That connection was threatened. So really tune into that inner child that had to go through that, because you're essentially repeating it, right? Okay, following through the resentment test. Here's one of the easiest ways where you actually might identify where you need a boundary. Look at where you are resentful. Why? Because resentment often happens when you constantly say yes when internally your body's telling you no. An internal no and an external yes, eventually it boils up that you think, why does everybody expect so much from me? And it has nothing to do with other people. Like, people don't even know that you're feeling this way. They might sense that the energy is off, but they don't know that your internal no, because you've been saying verbally yes. Sometimes we've intentionally trained people to expect it because we never communicated the limit. So there are actually two unhealthy extremes. Some people have very porous boundaries. They'll do almost everything to preserve the relationship. Other people might actually become extremely rigid. They'll say, I have boundaries. What they're actually doing is pushing people away because they're afraid of being vulnerable. They're afraid of compromise, closeness, conflict, to lose themselves. So essentially they put up a wall around themselves. Be very aware with what type of person that you are. You don't necessarily have to choose one, because I've been both in different scenarios, in different stages in my life. Healthy boundaries, just like I said before, sits right in the middle of this. I can love you without agreeing with you. I can understand your feelings without making them my responsibility. I can compromise without abandoning me. You can disappoint me without me deciding you don't love me. That's exactly what emotionally mature intimacy looks like. So the next time that you have to set a boundary, ask yourself, what am I afraid will happen if I say what I really want? I needed to go work on this, and I thought you needed as well. I'm actually doing the step-by-step process on creating extraordinary relationships, but don't go yet because we are not done. This question of what am I afraid of that will happen if I say what I really want will be very revealing, because it will tell you so much more. Because maybe you're not afraid of saying no. Maybe you're afraid of rejection. Maybe you're afraid of conflict. Maybe you're afraid of what somebody will think. And all of these mean something different. One of them, like for example, the first one, if you're afraid of rejection, that goes with the rejection wound. If you're afraid of what other people might think, it goes with the humiliation wound. So they all say something different, and when we get this information, you can actually work on that. So maybe if you're realizing that you don't need another boundary script, you actually want to attract your most aligned and extraordinary relationship, don't wait any longer, because the price is going to continue to go up. Right now we're still in chapter 3. This is the 3rd class under that chapter, so do not wait any longer. If you want to attract your divine union, I'll wait for you inside. You don't need to understand why you keep overriding yourself in relationships. So that's exactly the deeper work that I teach in creating an extraordinary relationship. We go beyond say this, don't say that. We go beyond that. We actually analyze what type of patterns you have. We look at the patterns underneath your behaviors. You can actually change the way you show up in love. I was going to say that this is a 3-month course, but I am seeing that it takes way longer And the slower you go, the deeper you will go. The slower you go, the bigger the results. So the goal is to become secure enough in yourself that you no longer self-abandoned. I'll wait for you inside. Okay, bye.